welcome to the Rundown with A and B. I'm Alan, A.
And I'm Bree, B.
And our first story, breaking news. Our first story was regarding the U.S. criminal justice system holding someone accountable for the unarmed shooting of a black man. Bree, please tell us.
Unheard of, right?
Please.
It's truly unheard of.
It sounds too good to be true, please.
Too good to be true. So really quick before I even get into the facts, I want to say shout out to social media who has been making noise regarding this story, which we will get into the importance of that later.
Of course.
But just to give you guys the facts, because that's why we are here. So on Friday, Superior Court Judge Michael Ofalu sentenced Chad Copley life without parole.
Life.
No chances.
Life. Like he ain't getting out no time soon.
chances. Life without parole.
Okay.
For the killing of 20-year-old Kareem Thomas, which, we just sent our condolences out to his family.
Absolutely.
So, kind of trying to backtrack a little bit, this incident happened August 2016. And what occurred was that Copley called 911, which I feel like is starting to kind of be like a common staple. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a common thing for these stories, which is very odd, right? He called 911 and he identified Thomas to the dispatcher as a hoodlum, which is suggestive in its...
Absolutely.
We're not going to get into that. Very suggestive. As he identified Thomas as such, he also continued to tell the dispatcher that he was locked and loaded and ready to secure his neighborhood.
Wow.
Shortly after that, as Thomas was walking from a house party, he shot Thomas, and the fatal shots are said, or it is said that the fatal shots occurred as Copley was standing in his garage. So the scene is that he was standing in his garage, and as Thomas was walking, he fired.
Okay.
So back to the social component that I had mentioned. I think that this is very important to the black community specifically because we are in the 5th year of the acquittal of George Zimmerman. So as a community, we have seen too many injustices have occurred since this,
A lot of disappointments for sure.
Exactly. Martin wasn't the first, and it has been proven that he has not been the last. So to see a judge stand up for what they believe is right in terms of just morale and saying, you shot an unarmed man, there is no justification for that. You're getting life without a parole. That means a lot. So there has been a lot of noise that's been made on social media. I've seen a lot of comments on Instagram and Twitter where a lot of people are just saying, like, this about time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That we needed this as a community. So I just wanted to pick your brain, and see what you thought about that.
It's definitely interesting because this is my first time hearing about the story, so I didn't see it on any of my timelines previously.
That is
so I'm glad that we're talking about it on this platform via the Takeover. But I want to say kudos to the jury as well because the judge can only sentence someone once they're found guilty by the jury. So kudos to the jury, and it's definitely, I want to say it's cause for celebration, but definitely cause for encouragement because I feel like oftentimes we get discouraged based on the highly publicized cases that we oftentimes see, whether that be on CNN or on Twitter. We get discouraged by the mistrials or the not guilties. So this is definitely an encouraging sign, hopefully a sign of things to come for sure.
Yes, and just speaking of, the different news outlets that you have mentioned and many more, I'm hoping that for those that maybe haven't, captured the story and put it in the forefront, because I know I had a hard time kind of trying to read a variety of articles to make sure I wasn't biased in presenting this. I'm hoping that they kind of grab hold of this too, because like you said, there's so much emphasis put on the mistrials and the not guilties that I think just as a country as a whole, not even just speaking for the black community, I think it's important that as a country with the climate that we're living in, it's really important that we do make sure that we're putting emphasis on the justice that is being served,
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of guns, here locally in Ohio, a 7th grader shot himself at Jackson Memorial Middle School, and he was sent to the hospital and was pronounced dead at the hospital, unfortunately.
That's so unfortunate.
But somehow he was able to get a .22 caliber rifle inside of his middle school where he shot himself in the bathroom. And now it is unclear whether or not that shot was accidental or intentional, so police are still investigating that. But definitely a sad story for sure.
Yeah.
And then here locally, here in Bowling Green, a Bowling Green high school student was denied access into his high school earlier this week because of a social media threat that he posted online. Now, he did not threaten specifically an individual or Bowling Green High School, but given the current climate, of course, with the recent Florida shooting, Bowling Green police thought to take a proactive measure in ensuring that he did not enter the school and brought him in for questioning. And these threats in Ohio are definitely not even a local thing here for Bowling Green, because over this past week we've had 5 different school districts report school threats this past week. So definitely I won't say not a dangerous time, but definitely a time where cause for concern for sure.
And I think it's interesting that you were just saying like with the 5 districts, because I think on a national scale, there has been calls for gun control. Following Parkland, there's so much being discussed regarding gun control. What will that look like for the country? Will the country move in that regard? And so one thing that I found, a story that I found was really interesting, was that this past Wednesday in Florida, there's a town hall which was publicized through CNN. That was the platform
I did see some of
Mm-hmm. So what happened was at this town hall, survivors of the high school in Parkland, they were able to voice their frustrations mainly, but their concerns as well, before lawmakers and NRA representatives. So to me, what really stood out about this story is that, for those that do not know, NRA, National Rifle Association, is, in a way, I guess it's fair to say that they are the face of the stagnation in terms of gun control.
Oh yeah, because they're profiting from it.
Exactly, yes. They're making huge profits, right? This is a big industry, and that's what I think a lot of people don't understand too, is that the NRA, they're reluctant about gun control because this is their bread and butter, essentially. Right. So when you hear like lawmakers and, just different legislators speaking of gun control, most of the time their negative comments regarding the stagnation is geared towards the NRA. And so what was interesting with this is that the survivors, students who are still kind of reliving this tragedy because it just happened, were able to be on a platform with, I'm going to look to make sure I don't mess up her name, Dana Loesch is the NRA representative. And she made a statement that I thought we definitely should bring to the takeover and kind of try to unpack it.
Absolutely.
The statement she said, and I read the quote directly, the organization, which she's referring to the NRA, feels the system for buying firearms is flawed and too many people who shouldn't be able to buy guns are getting through the cracks. Wow. To me personally, I will be honest, this was problematic because I feel though, as you are representing the NRA, for you to say that people are getting through the cracks, as a whole, the NRA is not suggesting any type of, gun control or any, even like laws that would just reform the system and the processes to obtain a gun. For you to say that people are falling through the cracks, well, are you giving any suggestions on how we can tighten the cracks? That was kind of my problem.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Yeah, I can definitely see how you think it would be somewhat hypocritical because they're being critical of a system that they're profiting from themselves. Yeah. So it's definitely a precarious position that they put themselves in for sure. And maybe moving forward, they'll be more proactive, but honestly, I highly doubt it because when it comes down to it, no one's going to give up their money or the profit that they're easily, making money from or profiting. So when it comes down to it, I think it's more so a political stance that you want to take. You want to be PC or politically correct. So I don't expect any action per se behind the words that she's saying.
Most definitely, and I just think that moving forward for me, I'm hoping that, as a country we can come together and try to see if there's even a balance because, how you were saying, the company, they're not going to give up their profit. I feel like many citizens don't want to give up the right to bear arms either. And, and that's a debate that each person has to kind of figure out for themselves. But as a country, I think we definitely need to start trying to figure out what we can do because there's just far too many school shootings. This is becoming common, and it should really be something that is unheard of.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for the rundown for this week with A and B. Make sure you tune in next week.